Whatever you think is their man.
Okay, everyone ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Jerry Stokes. I'm one of the deputy chiefs of the department, but I'm currently serving as the interim chief. And just wanted to say that we're here today to address some of the recent acts of gun violence in our community. In truth, we had 3 deaths and 2 homicide incidents in less than 24 hours in our city. While I'm limited because these are certainly ongoing investigations, I'll try to share some preliminary information about what occurred. Again, these are active investigations. Detectives are gathering evidence as we speak, so this is preliminary information. The first incident occurred on Friday, September 17th. It was a shooting. An adult male victim suffered a non-life-threatening gunshot wound at a residence in the 600 block of Leslie Lane Northwest. This is still under investigation, but so far our efforts indicate that the incident that was reported may not be actually what occurred. Again, detectives are trying to figure this out. We did collect several firearms and other evidence from the residents that we believe are connected to this shooting. The second incident occurred on Saturday night, early Sunday morning of September 17th in the 800 block of Westside Boulevard Northwest. An adult male victim was located inside a residence there with a critical gunshot wound. He was transported to the hospital by the Roanoke Fire and EMS Department, where he passed away a short time later. We located firearms and physical evidence at that address and are working to determine the events that led to the shooting. No arrests have been made regarding that investigation, but I feel like detectives have good, solid information based on what they're telling me to go on. So I'm confident about the investigation in that incident. The third incident occurred again on the 17th at a residence in the 1200 block of Melrose Avenue. 3 people were shot during an incident: an adult male, an adult female, that were both killed. They both died at the scene, and another adult male was shot and transported to the hospital. He is in stable condition and expected to survive. Detectives have identified a person of interest in this case, and that investigation is progressing. I'll share a little bit more about that suspect in just a moment. These most recent acts of gun violence have put our total count of homicide victims at 26. 22 of those victims were killed by gunfire in Roanoke. Our available records indicate this is the highest number of homicides the City of Roanoke has ever seen. Our thoughts are with all the family members of these victims as they grieve the loss of their loved ones. I want to stress that these incidents this weekend were not random. There's no apparent connection or nexus to gang violence or gang culture regarding these homicide incidents. It appeared that all of them stem from personal relationship at gatherings and sometimes a combination of the two, and that alcohol or other substance use seemed to have been a factor in all of them as well. Our detectives are making great strides in their investigation and are doing incredible work bringing justice to the grieving family members of these victims. You, our media partners, have been asking questions about the ceasefire Victory in the Valley that was recently launched, the community-wide call to action to end gun violence for the next 30 days. We, along with the Roanoke Sheriff's Office and our community partners, announced that effort on September 8th. It's unfortunate that our community could not make it that full 30 days, but I want to stress that doesn't mean that ceasefire is a failure. Ceasefire Victory in the Valley has shown us that there are community members who care about our city, care about those who are at risk of being injured or perpetuating any violent crimes in our city, and want to stop gun violence in our neighborhoods. I think that getting a large group of people together, and it was a great group of folks there, on a common ground, and to say that they care about this and want to see a huge success is great for our community. We are disheartened that these shootings occurred during ceasefire's timeline, but our efforts have not been discouraged. We want to share a bit of information as well about some of our enforcement efforts that we are doing in response to gun violence here in the City of Roanoke. Through the Bold Blue Line initiative and with support from the Governor's Office, we have additional resources that have been assigned to the city from the Virginia State Police. They have been assigned in our community since September 4th. You may or may not have noticed a greater influx of troopers riding through our neighborhoods, but I want to make sure everyone knows that they are accompanied by Roanoke police officers. So they are a partner with us in these efforts to address the crime hotspots that we have in our community, where gun violence and violent incidents are occurring. These are additional resources working behind the scenes to address the crime in the city. Our partnerships, we cannot be more thankful of. That's the Virginia State Police, the Roanoke County Police, the Benton Police, the Salem Police as well. We are incredibly grateful to all those agencies for their support, and know that a gun violence problem in Roanoke is a gun violence problem for everyone in the Roanoke Valley. I want our community members to know that we are working to address these acts of violence. In fact, we are throwing just about everything that we have at the problem, at the issue. We have got support and help from all of our state and local federal partners. We know you want to support that as well. We want the violence in our neighborhoods to stop just as much as you do. Remember, if you know anything about any of these acts of violence that have occurred in our city this year or at any time, we need you to speak up and tell us what you saw. If you see something, say something. You can call or text our tip line. You never know what small bit of information might be that bit of information that a detective needs to close a case, get a warrant to have the person prosecuted. So if you want to be part of solving the gun violence problem from a holistic level, consider volunteering for our RESET team. The Rapid Engagement of Success in the Event of Trauma team is always looking to add volunteers to their list of folks who assist. You can join us on our deployments in those areas impacted by trauma to provide resources to those neighborhoods. You can be a mentor to at-risk youth. Are there other ways that you can support us through our RESET program? We know it seems we're in a bad place right now, but I want to assure everyone there is hope. That hope comes from all of us working together, just like we announced during the ceasefire event on September 8th. We want to work together as a community to resolve this. We can't do it without our community, and our community can't do it without us. Let's work together to make Roanoke the best, safest place to be. The last thing I would like to ask our community to do to help us is locate that suspect we have identified in the Melrose Avenue incident. Detectives have obtained a warrant charging Edward DeNoyer with an initial single charge of second-degree murder. DeNoyer's whereabouts is unknown at this time, and we need the public's assistance in finding him. As with any information about an incident, community members can, if they see him, and we will be providing additional information to the media to get out and putting it out ourselves, can call 911 if they see him or know where he is. Or they can use our tip line or to send information about his whereabouts. But we need to get Mr. DeNoyer arrested and take him out of the community where he has caused us harm. Thank you. Those are my remarks. Now Mayor Lee will speak.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I want to express my heartfelt condolences to the victims' families and to the communities affected by the tragic events over the weekend. This is really inconsolable. This is an inconsolable loss, and I grieve alongside you. I encourage you to access some of the many resources and that support you at this time, and you'll hear more about them and as the chief mentioned about them. And an easy way to do that is to call 211 and request a community resource specialist. I also want to express the deep disappointment and sorrow I personally feel from the senseless acts of violence that have taken place in our city over the weekend. This is not the Roanoke that I know, and it is not the Roanoke that you know. What has happened to our city? Despite this pain and sadness that I feel, I want to emphasize that my disappointment is matched only by my determination to make lasting change. Together, Roanoke, we all must turn this moment of despair, and it is, into a catalyst for positive transformation. We must remember that we are a resilient community, and I've used that word a number of times since the state of the cities. But we are resilient, and that's so important. We're resilient because we're capable of rising above even the most challenging circumstances. Every act of gun violence raises those challenges. But now, as the chief mentioned, it's not the time to give up on our goal of peace, the ceasefire initiatives and other initiatives that we're trying to carry out in our city. It's not time to give up now. We've got to stay the course. And nor our dream of safety for every Roanoke resident is still there. And we're committed to doing that. And I remind you that our city government is committed to providing a safe place for all residents. And our law enforcement agencies are working tirelessly, and let me emphasize that, working tirelessly on investigations that will bring to justice those people who are responsible for this weekend crime. And finally, I remind you of the importance of our community, our friends, and our neighbors, as well as acquaintances and strangers, to unify, come together during this difficult time. We must all support one another, and I'm so appreciative of the work that that law enforcement in our communities have come together. As the chief mentioned, state police, Roanoke County, Vinton, and so that's important that we support one another, and even the residents, we support one another. Now is not the time to be critical of initiatives, critical of things that we got going. We've got to stay the course and work collaboratively with law enforcement to prevent further violence in our city. And so I just want to say that this council, and you'll be hearing from the vice mayor shortly, we're committed, our city administration is committed to doing all that we can, but we still need the help from the community if we're going to resolve or reduce these acts of senseless, and I say senseless, gun violence. Thank you. And now I'll bring on the Vice Mayor, Joe Carr.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to be clear, as the mayor said and Interim Chief Stokes said, that violence does not define our community, nor does it deter us from continuing the good and important work that we're doing. Sometimes we measure a community's vitality only by its harmful or violent acts, and that's not who Roanoke is. We measure our community by the good that we do, by the lives that are changed, by the lives that are saved. We cannot predict when someone's going to get in a fight. We cannot know when someone is going to cause harm to someone else. The only way we can know that is by checking ourselves individually. We are very concerned about the increase in mental health illness and wellness throughout the community. We're very concerned about what we've seen trending through these homicides this year alone that are directly related to interpersonal violence. So rather than working toward a resolution that is healthy and whole and preserves life, people are choosing to pick up a weapon and end lives. And that does not resolve anything in terms of conflict or violence. We will continue to provide resources in the community and connection points for people who need help, whether it's with anger management, whether it's needing access to mental health care services, regardless of your age. If you're a parent and you have a child that's struggling, that's acting out, that's having behavioral issues, you can call Carillion Connect, Blue Ridge Behavioral Health. Reach out to your counselors at your public school. Family Service of Roanoke Valley. There are so many resources, and it's our job to help you connect with those resources and make sure you know they're available. If you're concerned about the presence of guns in your household, please know that we have gun locks readily available, and they are free. They're available through every Roanoke City public school. They're available through the sheriff's office, through the city manager's office, and also through the police department. We are glad to order more if we need them, but it's important that these gun locks not just sit on a shelf or be tucked away where someone can't use them. They're intended to go into a gun and prevent that gun from being fired. That's the whole purpose of them. We also want to make sure that, as I said earlier, if you are struggling with anger, there are a plethora of resources available. We'll be posting these in the next day or two. The Gun Violence Prevention Commission was formed to focus on prevention and intervention. As I said, it's difficult to interrupt acts of violence when they are underway. We don't always know how to preempt them. So that's where we need everyone's help. If we're aware of situations, please let the police know. Please we have a Marcus alert system. If somebody is having a wellness issue or mental health challenges, that team can be called and activated very quickly to reduce the risk of injury to anyone involved. As the chief said and as the mayor said, you can volunteer with the Reset team, with Fed Up. We're going to hear more about that in a moment, and with our city's street prevention and intervention team. Also, if you have solutions that you think would be helpful, please share those with me, with anyone on city council, the police department. We are eager to do whatever we can in addition to what we are already doing to reduce overall crime in the city, and particularly violent crime. So I want to thank everyone who is working so hard, in addition to the police, the sheriff's office, Fed Up. When we stood on the steps of the municipal building for ceasefire victory in the valley, we meant every word that we said. And our actions continue to stand for what we represented that day. Our faith communities care. Our community agencies care. Our Roanoke City Public Schools care. Our police department cares. Our sheriff's office cares. Our local government cares. And we are all doing everything that we possibly can. The only way we can do more is if citizens step up and join us in that effort. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Bishop Jamal Jackson, who is the chaplain for Fed Up and is one of the participating clergy in Ceasefire Victory in the Valley, to share more information about both of those initiatives.
Thank you to our interim Chief Stokes. Thank you so much to Mayor Lee, members of council, Vice Mayor Cobb. My sentiments are the same as our chief and our city council members, that we are certainly beyond words. It was our hope that on September the 8th, we would see complete 30 days of no violence within our city. However, we didn't see that, but we can see it. Though we may have unbroken days within our calendar, we don't have unbrokenness in our faith, in our belief, in our hope, that this will end and that we will see truly victory in the valley. On last night, members of the Fed Up organization, which is Families Expecting Deliverance Using Prayer, we gathered together for the second watch of what we have deemed a prayer revival. The Fed Up organization came together in the southwest section of the city of Roanoke at Perry Park. The first was last month in Melrose Park. We came together to pray. We do prayer vigils quite often, which are there to support families and those who have been impacted by loss, especially through gun violence. We took an initiative to be proactive and to pray before the gun goes off. We had planned this since last month to pray in the Perry Park in Southwest and continue it even next month in a different section of the city and the next month in a different section of the city to take prayer around the city and make sure we're covering it in all 4 quadrants. When we were preparing for Sunday evening, it was certainly disheartening for us to learn that someone had died due to gunfire on Sunday morning. But we did not give up hope. We did not give up our initiative, and we kept going. Even in the rain, we still gathered together because we believe that prayer changes things. And so the organization Fed Up is still here. We're here to be with you. As I'm the chaplain of that organization and a board member for Fed Up, we're here for grief counseling, for grief therapy. We're meeting every 4th Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. at the West End Center. Families are able to come, male and female, young and old, are able to come into a support area, an environment where you can receive resources and you can receive help. Not only that, but as has been mentioned already this afternoon, the Ceasefire Victory in the Valley Initiative, which gathered over 20 clergy, members from all over the city of Roanoke and the valley, as well as churches, have come together. I had some conversations throughout the year because this is not a brand new problem for Roanoke. We are dealing with this all year, and we're just tired of it now. And so I had some conversations with some members of the community and asked them, what can we do as members of the clergy? And they said, if the clergy and the churches would come together, then the streets and the community will come together. Well, I submit this challenge to everyone who is watching and everyone who will see this later. We are together now. Now it's on you. We've done our part. We are coming together. Again, over 20 members of the clergy and our churches have joined together to see victory in the valley. Yes, it hurt that we did not complete 30 straight days, but we don't stop our clock. We may have seen 2 days of tragedy within our city, but we saw 7 days without tragedy. And the last time I counted, 7 was greater than 2. So we still see victory in the valley, and we are still pushing towards that dream, that hope, and that reality that we will see manifested in the city of Roanoke, Virginia. We are partnering together with law enforcement, with our police department, with Sheriff Hash and the sheriff's office. We're partnering with our city government, with our mayor, as well as members of city administration to see what we can do together, not just in a reactive approach, but in a proactive approach to make sure that we're doing all of our parts. So then what can you do as a community to help us cease the fire that we're seeing in our city? I'm glad you asked. There's several things that we can do. We need more churches. We need more clergy. Sad to say, but the majority of those members of the clergy that have come together for this ceasefire initiative have been within our African-American community. It doesn't stop there. And most of them have been within the Northwest community, but it doesn't stop there. This is bigger than a Northwest problem. It's bigger than a black problem. It's bigger than what we see, and so we need everyone, not just Christian churches. We need Hindus. We need Muslims. We need Jews. We need atheists, those who may not believe. But we can stand together with the common hope and reality that we will see this gunfire ceasing within the city. So we invite you to come, not only members of clergy or members of the faith-based community, but we're asking for barbers, beauticians, barbershops, salons. Stop by the office of the sheriff and get a calendar. Put it outside your business. Members of the community, come, get one, put it outside your home, your particular business, your stores, and let's put another V in every day that we don't see gunfire take place in our city. There is still victory in the valley. 2 days is less than 7, and we're hoping today becomes day number 8. Tomorrow is day number 9. The next day is day number 10. My advice to those of you in our community is make sure that we are doing all that we can to have conflict resolution. Let's think twice before we shoot once. Let's think about the effects that it will have not just on your family, but on the family of those who are impacted on the other side of the gun. Do all that we can. We are together, and we're looking for you to support us in this initiative as we continue to see victory in the valley, because we truly are fed up. Thank you so much.
Bishop Jackson, excellent words. Thank you for that. Mayor Lee, Vice Mayor Cobb, thank you for your comments. I'll now try to take a few questions, or the other panel members will be glad to try and take a few questions.
Do we have a number? I know you said the number of homicides that we've had this year. Do we have a number of how many suspects have been apprehended for those homicides or been arrested?
I can get that information for you. I don't have it in front of me.
These tip lines and ways that people can submit information, are they all completely anonymous?
So the tip lines are not anonymous, yes. Obviously, if you're calling 911, there's information that comes in. You can request that that information not be shared out when you call in. But yeah, again, see something, say something. So be willing to call that 911 when you see him walking down the road so we can get him arrested. He should not be in our community.
Chief Stokes, many of these homicides and shootings have gone unsolved. What would you say is the biggest hurdle to your detectives and your department in trying to find whoever did these shootings and finding a suspect?
But actually, would kind of tend to disagree with a lot of being unsolved, because we have had quite a bit of success in solving some homicides and making arrests in those. So again, I'll get to those exact numbers, but certainly we do have some homicides that are unsolved at this point. Again, it's the bottom line is willingness to see something and say something. Now, there's a limit to being anonymous, and want the community to understand that for someone to be prosecuted can't necessarily have someone remain anonymous that may have seen that. So we want you to take a stand with us, as Bishop Jackson has mentioned. Take a stand with us, be willing to see something, say something, and then be willing to stand up in court and say, I saw them do this. Because that's the way they are prosecuted and held accountable for their acts.
There's a lot of talk, I know, about repeat violent offenders. That has been brought up a lot. Is that this new suspect that we've been talking about, is he one of them? Also, these other suspects that I know you're looking into, are they all part of that? Or kind of, it just feels like that word has been thrown out there a lot, and I want to know how much of that is true.
Right, so I'm not able to specifically talk about what his criminal history may be, but I would not characterize him as being a repeat violent offender. He certainly has had contact with Roanoke Police in the past, but he, again, can't be specific about that, but I would not, we have the Project Safe Neighborhoods offender list, which is a means of identifying those prolific offenders, and I would not say that he falls within that.
And then also, you brought up that this is a record high, at least with the records that you have. Do you perhaps know the year, the last time that we've seen this? I know it's obviously bigger than last year with data that we have, but when's the last time that we've seen this much violence?
My understanding is back in the 70s that there were somewhere around 25 homicides. Now, in the last 20 years, we have not exceeded 20 before this year. So.
Do you have a suspect description of Edward Denoyer that you can give out?
Yeah, we're actually going to get that pushed out fairly right after this, and we'll have a poster, a wanted poster sent out that'll have all of that information to be able to easily identify him.
So no crime's the same, but the outcome seems to be. What, in general terms, what would you say are the most common denominators why this is happening?
Vice Mayor Cobb mentioned that last year there was a lot of nexus to gang involvement in this. This year, not so much, and fewer juveniles, I believe. Again, was not here in 2022, but this year fewer juveniles involved, and the age of offenders and victims is really spread out. So it's just that interpersonal violence, disagreements. That's exactly what occurred this weekend. Were disagreements that escalated to the point that someone felt it necessary to use a firearm, unacceptable to use a firearm, but that interpersonal disagreement, interpersonal relationship that it wasn't random and nothing like that. It wasn't there again. There was no gang nexus. It was just interpersonal violence that occurred.
Can you tell us have all of the firearms that were used this past weekend, were they legally or illegally owned? Have you seized them?
It takes us, I don't have that information. We will trace those firearms to see if there is, how they got into people's possession, if we're able to determine that. Sometimes we're not able to determine that, but we'll do, that will be part of the investigation, yes.
I think the last time we were all in this room, you mentioned building a second team to help get illegal firearms off the street. Tell me a little bit about how that has been going for you guys. Do you have a number on how many guns have been taken off the street this year?
I don't have that right off the top of my head. I can certainly get that information for you. Yes, we just prior to the partnership, the state police approached us about this enhancement to the Bold Blue line here in Roanoke, and we had formed that second team that their responsibility or their efforts were to target carrying firearms illegally and prolific offenders. And they have been working, and then the state police just folded right in with them, and their initiative that they have initiated in Roanoke, again with our partners Roanoke County, Benton Police, and Salem Police, are all part of that initiative here because it's a Roanoke Valley issue. So they have been recovering and charging people with firearm related offenses, and as we kind of work through that initiative, we'll get to some points where we'll be able to make sure that we have the information, make that available to the public, the media as well.
When did I know you've obviously had a partnership with Virginia State Police going back forever, but when did the partnership of Virginia State Police riding along with Roanoke City Police through hotspots, when did that begin? Specifically,
this initiative that I was speaking about, that started on September 4th, that Monday, that was Labor Day week, and they have been with us each week since then, as much as 20 troopers additional out in the street with our officers.
You touched on that this wasn't believed to be gang-related. Can you just kind of elaborate on sort of how you have the confidence to say that, or any that there's no indications that this might be?
Right. One being people's history with us. Two, kind of in speaking with the witnesses and other people involved in that, and kind of who is doing what, and what the indications are in that person's history, either victim or suspect that we may be looking at. What does that lead one to say that there is a gang nexus here?
Over the last year, we've seen a lot of federal state grants going towards addressing the gun violence issue. Don't have that number off the top of my head, but definitely totaling more than $500,000. Based on what we've seen this weekend, is that money effective in building up our community partners to really address the root of this issue?
Are you talking about grants specific to the police department? Help me understand your question, sorry.
Sure. So last September, there were 3 grants totaling over $500,000 directed at community partners, directed at really just addressing this issue. Based on what we've seen, would you say that the grant money that is announced, there have been multiple grants announced over the last year, the money that is specifically directed towards gun violence and gun violence prevention, would you say that that is effective?
Right, so these are grants that the Gun Violence Prevention Commission were giving out, as I understand your question. Right, so, and of course, there was grant funding for our reset program as well. You know, I don't have data specifically. I can talk about anecdotally, right? So, again, there was a shift in kind of how our victim and offender looked, you know, that particularly the age. Now, unfortunately, it's still concentrated in a lot in Northwest, so there's a lot of efforts going on there. So, anecdotally, I think, you know, was that shift of lots of juveniles? Was there good intervention from, you know, the gang nexus piece that has lessened that being part of that? So it certainly seems to have had an effect, but unfortunately we still have violence in our community. So yeah, there's more work to do, obviously, to address that violence, that interpersonal violence that seems to be the common denominator for our violence in 2023. It looks like some of the things that were red flags in 2022, that a lot of that grant funding was directed towards addressing, anecdotally has made a difference.
Earlier this year, we were seeing juveniles, some of the fights between them, or, you know, just young folks, kind of starting on social media. Are we still seeing that? Is that still a problem for us? Has school helped kind of alleviate some of that, or how is that going?
Whenever kids get back in school, there's sometimes a little bit of a stabilization in their, you know, life because, you know, they're in schools, lots of parental figures there that may or may not have at home. There's lots of additional resources that are available to them. So sometimes that does assist when they get back in school. And that's why, you know, a lot of the gun violence prevention grants were summer activity programs, and to again address that gap that they don't have when they're in school. Your basic question about the social media, that is an absolute issue. I'm not sure how we can address that other than assisting parents in developing their skills and therefore assisting their children with how they manage their social media and what to kind of do when things start to go awry in those social media contacts that seem to lead to additional disputes.
Have you seen any of that this weekend?
Not specifically this weekend. No, that was not a nexus to any of this.
Great.
When you say interpersonal relationships, does that include domestic, like partner romantic relationships as well?
Yes, domestic relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, or other kind of romantic relationships, and then of course just people that know each other and gather together. The one where the 3 people were shot, 2 died, that was just folks who knew each other, had gathered at this residence. Again, alcohol sometimes and other substances play a role in that as well.
We've got time for one more question, if anyone has one.
Every one of you, while you spoke today, mentioned something about still being hopeful for this. I am just curious, like, when you're seeing this type of violence and it increasing, how you guys are able to remain hopeful when all the signs are pointing to this is a continuing issue.
Can't give up on this. Bishop Jackson talked about 7 is greater than 2, right? So even though something has happened, we can't give up on this. We can't just throw up our hands and say, oh, this is okay, and it's just kind of how things go in Roanoke. That's not okay. We've got to address this from a community-wide perspective. We've got to keep pushing forward. We've got to keep, that number has got to grow. The 7 is more than 2, 7, 8. Bishop talked about that already. And it's got to get greater and greater. And if there are setbacks, we just got to keep going forward. Again, Roanoke's better than this. Mayor talked about that. Roanoke's better than this. We have got to keep pushing forward, keep doing the things and looking at what things we need to adjust to make it better. Thank you.